Hi, Claire. I'm really glad to see you again. I'm really glad that you could hop on this Zoom with me. Things have been so different since the pandemic and telehealth and everything. It's a little weird. So, how have you been since our last meeting?
You are totally right. Things have been so weird, but we've been good. It's just day to day with work and family and taking care of the kids.
Makes sense. Were you able to celebrate Thanksgiving last week?
Yeah, we did. We tried to keep it as safe and low key as possible. So we just spent it with my kids and my parents, but it was really nice to just relax and have some uninterrupted time with family.
That's good. Yeah, that sounds great. It was pretty much the same over here, just super small and low key. But I'm really glad that I was able to come and evaluate last week. I saw some really great things between you and your family, and I'm hoping to learn a few more things. So, if it's okay, I'd love to ask you a couple of questions about Carter before we get into working together on creating some goals and strategies.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Okay, so what would you consider to be the things that are really motivating for Carter? In other words, what does he enjoy doing most in the day?
Hmm, that's a good question. Well, he really likes to play with toy cars. So he finds a lot of enjoyment in just rolling the cars back and forth. And of course, since he's a boy, he likes to crash them into each other. And I think he likes blocks for the same reason. He likes blocks and likes to stack them and then knock them down. um, Another activity that he really enjoys is we usually try to read as a family before bed, and he seems to enjoy reading and likes to help us turn the pages and go to the next page.
It's really good to know. Is there anything else daily routine wise that he enjoys?
I guess the other thing that sticks out in my mind is I know that most kids don't like taking baths, but he loves bath time. So he typically seems really content when he's playing in the bath. He has all these bath toys and water that he really just likes to play in. So that's fun.
Yeah, that's really good to know. It's really good information. So thank you for that.
Of course.
My next question is, what are you and your husband's main concerns at this point? So, if there were, say, three or four things that you would most like to target with intervention, what would they be?
Hmm. I think something that we've talked about pretty often, my husband and I, would be that our concern is Carter's vocabulary. Because he doesn't really combine words into sentences. And as a mom, it's hard not to compare the development of your previous children to your current child at that age. And so I feel like I remember that the girls were using so many more words at his age. And then I really think that they could at least form some sentences every so often, but Carter just doesn't seem to use many words, and he mostly just talks in one word sentences. So he just says car or more or bath. So that is something that concerns us.
Yeah, I can understand that you are concerned about his vocab and sentence length, and the assessments that I gave last week did confirm that his vocabulary and MLU are below average for his age. So these are definitely things that we can work on targeting with the strategies that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, that would be really great. I would say that our next concern is that all of us have a lot of trouble understanding what he's saying. So he'll say a word, and it's a word that he uses frequently in the same situations. So then we can typically understand what he's saying right away. But when he tries to combine words or use a new word, we can almost never understand him. And with people outside of our household, it's even worse. So, like with my parents and our neighbors, they don't understand Carter almost at all.
Thank you for sharing that. So, do you find that he gets frustrated when he's not understood?
Oh, yeah, definitely. When we ask him to repeat himself more than once, he gets really frustrated. And sometimes he'll just shut down completely and give up on trying to talk to us.
Yeah, I can understand how that would be difficult for you and your family, and for Carter too. I mean, it can be easy to go through the day and not have people understanding what you're saying. So, in our assessments last week, I did find that Carter was pretty unintelligible compared to typically developing children of his age. And I also found that some of the characteristics of his disorder, like low muscle tone and atypical oral structures, might be part of the cause of this. So, this is definitely something that we can look at targeting as well. So, did you have any other concerns about Carter at this point?
Yeah, I think my last concern would be just how he interacts with both my husband and I and his sisters. I'm also just really concerned about how he interacts with other kids his age. I typically don't see him playing or trying to socialize with other kids at his daycare, and that's obviously concerning to me. He doesn't really try to get involved with playing with his sisters when they're playing, and he doesn't really, even if kids come over to him and initiate play, he doesn't really respond to those invitations. So I really want him to be able to make friends at daycare and at school. So just wondering what we can do as parents to foster that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a completely valid concern. And I completely understand how seeing other kids his age playing together would make this even a bigger concern for you. So I also noticed during the play observation that I did last week that he does have some different play tendencies than other kids his age. So let's definitely look at this as a target as well. Just another question about this. Do you notice that he has any difficulty with friends or interactions at daycare?
Yeah, just from the limited amount that I've been able to watch him, like after drop off or before pickup, I just noticed that some kids will try to initiate play, and that Carter just really doesn't want anything to do with it. And I've seen the opposite too, where Carter goes up to a child to kind of play, or they have a toy that he wants to play with, and the kid totally will reject him. And I'm not sure if that's just because he is a little more rough with his play. And so if the kids just notice that and don't want to play with him. But like I said before, it is just a concern for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So we can work on all of these skills. We can create some outcomes that we want to work on based on all of your concerns, which, as I understand, are vocabulary, sentence length, intelligibility, and play interactions. So we can come up with some strategies that you and your husband can integrate into your daily routine to hopefully help Carter with all of these areas.
So you won't be doing therapy with him?
That's a good question. So, because Carter's only 3 years old, my role is more of a coaching role. Since I'm only here in your house with Carter for about an hour a week, if I teach your family things that you can implement every day, Carter's going to be able to get a lot more out of it than if he was only working on those things with me for, say, an hour a week. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make a lot more sense. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, of course. So let's go over some of the outcomes that I wrote up here based on your concerns and see what you think about them. All right.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, so the first concern that you mentioned to me was vocabulary, and the outcome that I made for this skill is that you and your husband will work within daily routines and activities to help Carter increase his vocabulary and use more words functionally each day.
I think that sounds like something we'd like to work on.
Okay, so let's try to think of some things that we can implement some strategies into within your daily routine. So you said Carter enjoys playing with cars, he likes bath time, and you guys read books together.
Yep, and he really does like playing with blocks too, so stacking them and knocking them down.
Okay, that's great. So while Carter's playing with cars, you could join him and model new words within that context. So, for example, while he's playing, you can narrate what he's doing and emphasize those new words like, oh, you push the car. And there are a lot of words that you can come up with within simple contexts like that. So, when playing with cars, you have drive, road, fast, slow, and implementing those words into the context will help him learn them. And then you're also interacting and playing with him, which should be rewarding for him. And then you also said that he enjoys bath time, and that's something that's really engaging for him. So maybe while he's in the bath, you can model words like splash. You can splash him a little bit with the water, say splash. You can model pour, fill a cup up with water, pour it on his hand so he can feel the water come down and say pour. You can say wash while you're scrubbing his hair, washing his body, whatever, and saying those words within the context of the routine while you're doing those things will help him learn those words. And he loves reading books before bed. Books have a ton of vocabulary in them, so this is a great time to explain what words mean by maybe pairing them with an action or pointing to a picture in the book that shows what the word means. So do all of these strategies seem like things that you could implement into every day?
Yeah, I definitely think so. It's going to be hard to remember, so I hope that I'll get some sort of tool or email about these just because it is such good information that I don't want to forget.
Yes, absolutely. I'm taking notes down here as we're talking, so I'll definitely clean this up and email it to you at the end of our meeting.
Yeah,
Just to check in, did you have any questions so far?
I don't think I have any questions yet.
Okay, perfect. Stop me if you do. You can just interrupt me. So your next concern was sentence length, or sometimes we call it MLU. The outcome I came up with for this was that you and your husband will use strategies during everyday activities to help Carter expand his MLU and use more words in each sentence.
Yeah, that would be great. I really do want him to be able to communicate, and using only one word really limits him.
Yeah, it definitely does. So, the main thing that I would suggest doing here to help him with his phrase length is expanding on his one word utterances. So, that means when he says one word to you and you know that he means something else, you can take that one word and turn it into a full sentence. So, for example, if he comes up to you, he says up, he has his arms gestured so that you pick him up, you can say, oh, you want mommy to pick you up? Mommy, pick me up, and then pick him up. And then he knows that those two sentences and the action go hand in hand. So one strategy to help him that I think might work for your family is using dialogic reading, which is a reading tool where you read a book with him, and instead of just reading the words, flipping the page, finishing the book, you instead make it more of a conversation with Carter while you're reading. So at the end of a sentence or at the end of a page, you can ask, what is he doing? Why did he do that? Pointing at the pictures. And then after he answers you, he's probably going to use a 1 to 2 word utterance based on what I've seen and what you've told me. So then you can expand on those utterances. So if you ask, what is he doing? And Carter says, he wants food. I don't know, that might not be something that he would say, but you could go back to him and be like, that's right, Carter, he wants food for his family. That's why he's at the grocery store. So does that seem like something that you could do every day?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And we read all the time, so it'll be easy to ask him questions.
Okay, good. So then your next concern was intelligibility, which makes sense. We want Carter to be understood when he's talking, and we don't want him to be frustrated when he's not understood. So this outcome is that you and your husband will implement strategies to increase Carter's intelligibility so that he's more understandable to both people that do know his speech and can sometimes understand him, and people who don't know his speech and can typically not understand him. So does that sound like something that would benefit your family?
Yeah, I definitely think that would.
Okay, good. So the main strategy here is modeling correct productions for words when you're talking to Carter. So when you can understand the words that he says, you can repeat those words back to him and emphasize the missing or incorrect sounds from when he said the word. So for example, if he's pointing outside at some birds and he says something like "buh," you can say, that's right, Carter, there are some birds outside, and really emphasize those sounds. And then another idea for this area is to implement some simple sign language for high frequency words that might be difficult for other people to understand. So from what you've told me, usually those high frequency words, you and your husband can understand, Carter, but maybe grandma and the neighbor can't. So teaching him simple signs like more and cookie, and there are a ton of simple signs. I can email you along with this document some simple baby signs of high frequency words. But doing that would just help the unfamiliar listeners understand Carter more often and might limit the amount of frustration and the amount of shutting down that he might do when those people can't understand him. So finally, the last thing under here would be praising Carter for all of his speech attempts. So every speech attempt he makes, we can try to limit his frustration and increase his confidence by praising that attempt. So even if he says a word incorrectly, but you understood him, you can say, "Great job, Carter, cookie," or whatever the word is, but be sure to model that correct production back to him. So does that make sense and seem like something that you guys can do?
Yes, that definitely makes sense to model words for Carter. That's definitely something that I'd like to implement into our routine.
Great. And then your last concern was play interactions.
Yes, exactly. I'm just so worried about him being able to make friends at daycare and when he goes to school because he just does not seem interested in playing with other kids or even adults sometimes.
Yeah, and I can completely understand why this is a concern for you. So I wrote this outcome that your family will implement strategies to help Carter participate in play interactions with his sisters. And I chose his sisters so that way this is something that you can work on every day. It's not something that's only going to be available when the neighbor kids are over or when he's at daycare, because his sisters are around the house most of the time, right?
Oh, yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, so are there any play situations that you can think of that might be common in your home that we could implement some strategies into?
Hmm. Give me a second to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, our girls love crafts and baby dolls, and they do enjoy playing sports together. But Carter is not really interested in those activities. Um, let's see. But I guess the girls do sometimes play with their Lego blocks. So I think that that's something that we could encourage Carter to do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And it is important to have the play situations be something that Carter's interested in so that it's motivating for him so that he actually wants to go and play with them. So those Legos seem like a good one. They kind of seem like they could relate to those blocks that he likes to stack up and knock down. So with the Legos, you and your family, his two sisters or your husband could model playing appropriately by taking turns, interacting with each other, interacting with the toys, talking about the play interaction. And then when Carter sees you guys enjoying your time together, he might want to join in naturally. And then another strategy is to allow for many opportunities for play interactions in a day. So make time for it. And when you see Carter playing by himself, go in and join him and interact with him and with the toys and make that a joint play interaction instead of a singular play interaction. And then it's also important to reinforce positive play behaviors in the moment. So you can say things like, "Carter, I love how you just shared a toy with your sister," or "Carter, great job helping me build a tall tower."
Yeah, those are great. Those are great tips. And I think that we could definitely find more time to play with Carter in our day and talk about play with Carter. So we're definitely going to have to try these strategies and encourage his engagement at home.
Sounds great. Did you have any questions for me before we wrap up this meeting?
I don't think I do, not at this moment.
Okay, perfect. Well, you know that you can email me anytime with questions. I'm going to get this document all cleaned up that I've been working on while we've been talking today, and I will email it to you later today along with those baby signs.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thanks so much. We're so excited to start using these strategies and these techniques in our home.
Sounds great. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next week.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Bye.